Bradford City, your team, of course, Gaz. It's been a busy early period in the summer transfer window. Obviously, players are not sort of official until 1st of July. But, teams have, like Town and Bradford, have started announcing signings of those players that they're able to sign. Bradford have made 4 signings so far, and another one expected before pre-season training starts next week. For those that don't know, Gaz, I don't know if you want to just quickly run down the 4 that have been signed and your thoughts on the early business that City have done.
Yeah, so it's 4 signings today. Obviously, I've done my reaction videos to them as and when they've happened. We haven't had a specific Bradford show to discuss City in great detail, but I've tried to react to news as it's gone on. The first one that we signed was Max Power, which was before the playoffs had even... I don't even know if the semi-finals had finished when we signed him. Obviously, central midfielder, decent track record at League One level, having got promotions with Wigan in the past. Central midfielder, believed that he'll probably... or he might fill in the gap that Richie Smallwood's left, but we'll come on to Richie Smallwood later on. I know we're going to talk about what's been said about him over the last week. So he was the first one, received pretty well by City fans because of his pedigree. I believe he's been playing in Denmark and in Saudi Arabia, so that's the only worry, whether he's still got the drive or the legs to play at League One level, having been over there for the last year. But on the face of it, a good signing. Second signing was Curtis Tilt, Salford City captain, 34-year-old. Again, we've gone down the route of players that have had success and got promotion in the past, because that's what worked for Graham Alexander last year in League Two, signing Neil Byrne, Anthony Sarcevic. He's gone for Curtis Tilt, who's got promotion out of League One with Wigan before. Not necessarily received as well as Max Power, probably nowhere near as well as Max Power was, just because he's been at Salford for the last 2 or 3 years and Salford haven't pulled up any trees in League Two. They've not made the playoffs, and it's one that City fans are looking at and saying not so sure about that one, to be honest. But it depends what role he's coming in to play in the squad. Is he coming in as a starter? Is he coming in as cover? He's certainly someone who's going to have the right mentality. Like I say, a captain, a previous promotion winner. So he's going to be someone who's good to be around the dressing room, even if he's not playing regularly. The third signing that we made was I can't remember his first name, Wright from Kilmarnock. Just bear with me, Downs. I'm just going to look up what his first name is. He actually came through the Joe Wright, came through the Huddersfield Academy as a kid. Spent some time on loan out at Aki Stanley, I think he was, and then he's been at Doncaster and Kilmarnock over the last few years. Very, very highly thought of at both of those clubs. Donny fans who've had a little bit of banter with City over the last couple of years, in League Two, as we've both been challenging for promotion, are actually holding their hands up and saying that he looks like a good signing for us, judging what they remember about him when they had him. They had him in League One when they were last in League One. And Kilmarnock fans, again, speak really highly of him as well. He's just won their Player of the Year at Kilmarnock. He's played in Europe for Kilmarnock as well. He's big mates with Brad Halliday. He's either a right-hand-sided centre-half or he'll play in the middle of the three, from what I can gather, one of those two positions. Chips in with an odd goal or two from corners. He's a big lad. So he looks like a good one. Downs, he looks like one we've picked. Done well to get, I would say, because I would imagine there were a bit of competition for him this summer. And then the fourth one that we've made is Josh Neuville. Who
probably your best one.
Yeah, it looks like the pick of the signings so far. A wing-back from Wimbledon. Wimbledon obviously come up with us through the playoffs this end of last season. He won their Player of the Year at their end of season awards. Mainly a right wing back, from what I can gather. So he's going to be in competition with Brad Halliday, who's obviously a fan's favourite at City. But he has played left wing back as well. We do have a big gaping hole at left wing back at the moment because Lewis Richards hasn't signed his new contract that he's been offered, and Teodor Amola has gone back to Crystal Palace. There are hopes that we might get him back on loan again. So the only left wing back that we've got at the moment is Tyreek Wright, who's not necessarily pulled up any trees in that position. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays left wing back. But from what I'm told, when asked about it, David Sharp said he's been brought in to compete with Brad Halliday at right wing back. So that's two really good right wing backs that we've got there competing for that shirt next season. I'm led to believe he's lightning quick, really good going forward, and can put a damn good cross in. So Wimbledon fans really, really disappointed to see him go. I think more disappointed that he's come to us, because I think they thought that obviously we've gone up with them. He might have gone a bit higher, possibly to a Town or somebody like that, who are obviously going to owe him in to be up near the top of League One or even a lower end Championship club. They thought he had that ability. So he's a real coup for us, and one that I'm quite excited about.
Do you think the signings that you've made so far are as of the standard that you'd hoped for before you'd signed anybody at City? Obviously, the main aim for City this season, I think, unless you can put me wrong, is to stay up, which I think you've got enough to do anyway with the way that the bottom of the League One is, having seen it now for a season. But do you think these signings really do improve your squad, take you to another level?
Like I said, the Joe Wright one and the Josh Neuville one, yes. The Max Power one, probably as well. Not so sure about the Curtis Tilt one. At the end of the day, where I've talked about this, and I know we'll probably talk about it throughout the season with both City and Town being in League One. I think League One it's got at least two sections in that division. You've got it's kind of a league of a have and have nots, if you know what I mean. I mean, you look at what Birmingham did last season, what Wrexham did last season, and even what Town did, spending £3 million on a striker in January. That's a market that City are just nowhere near being able to compete with. And I believe that over the last week or so, we've been linked with Murray Wallace from Millwall, which now appears as we've kind of dropped out of the race because we were up against teams such as Town and Blackpool. Blackpool are going big this year, as you'll know. They've made some really good signings too. So I think we've got to be aware of where we are. And I think Joe Wright, Josh Neuville, Max Power are very, very steady signings for a side that, as you say, I'm not. City fans some City fans will want to aim for higher, but with the way the club is, not owning the ground, not owning the training ground, and Stefan Rupp just owning the club, we are going to have to build in League One. We're not going to be someone that can go and throw a lot of money around and aim to be up at the top straight away. It's going to be building blocks for us. So I think they are good building blocks to start with, yeah. Hopefully there's more to come, because I do see 4 or 5 big holes in the squad still, and I'm sure that those signings will come before the end of the summer. I believe, as you say, there's one that we're believed to be close to one before pre-season starts next week. The lads are back in next week, so hopefully we're on the right track. I think, yeah, for where we've got to aim to be, and there'll be some loans to come, I'm sure, because we use the loan market very well use the loan market very well last season. I'm sure we'll aim to again.
What business are you still expecting to happen, or do you want to see happen? You said that there's one expectant to be coming in. Any idea who that might be and what position it is, and where else do you want to see Graham Alexander go out and improve the squad?
There's no nailed-on rumours of who that player might be. I know it's a couple of weeks since we had a Monday show, and Chris asked me at the time about rumours about City, and we were linked at the time with 3 centre-halves, which were Curtis Tilt, Joe Wright, and Mr. Pearson, funnily enough. And obviously we signed 2 of those players, and the third one has ended up at Doncaster. Now, there's no, what I would say, as solid a rumours as that at the moment. There are obviously names flying around. We've been linked. I think the TNA did an article today talking about, it mentioned Murray Wallace, who I talked about a few minutes ago. It mentioned Dan Agye, who Leyton Orient striker, who I know we've been interested in the past. And they also mentioned Ben Woods, a midfielder who is at Accrington Stanley at the moment, but he's under contract and would require a fee. He actually scored a wonder goal against Walsall in the penultimate match of the season, which meant that they dropped points and we stayed above them, going for that 3rd place. So he's already, having not played for City, a bit of a Bradford hero. Now, whether any of those are true or not, I don't know. The other name that's floating around that wasn't mentioned in the TNA this morning is Marcus Brown, who's an attacking midfielder, ex-Oxford. He's been at Wimbledon, another player who's been at Wimbledon for the last 6 months. Very highly rated at Wimbledon. The problem with him is he does pick up a lot of injuries from what I can gather. He's prone to hamstring injuries and misses a lot of games. But again, another player who's very, very highly thought of by the Wimbledon fan base. So they're the 4 names that are flying around at the moment. Whether any of them are solid, I don't know, because like I said, they're not as nailed on as the rumours were 2 or 3 weeks ago. Simon Parker's actually away at the moment, the TNA writer, and we've got Nathan Atkinson, his understudy, covering for him, and he's the guy that wrote the article this morning. So whether there's any more nailed on rumours to come, I'm not 100% sure. Personally, I'm hoping for at least 5 more signings. I really am, to get the squad where I would think it needs to be. But I do think that some of those will be loan signings. They're not all going to be permanent signings. We need a left wing back. We've only got Tyreek Wright at the moment who can play left. Well, I said Josh Neuville can play, but we're told he's going to compete with Brad on the right-hand side. So we've only got Tyreek Wright for left wing back. I believe that Lewis Richards and Kieran Kelly haven't agreed the new deals yet that they've been offered. If Lewis Richards signs, he might be the other left wing back. Kieran Kelly is a centre half. I would imagine whether we sign another centre half will come down to whether he signs his contract offer that he's been made. So we definitely need a centre back, another left wing back. I would imagine that we will look at another midfielder who can compete with Max Power and Alex Patterson, because we do play two central midfielders, and we've only got 2 central midfielders at the moment, so we need some competition in there. So that's the third signing I'd look at. We need an attacking.
You probably need another 2, don't you, really, with the amount of games that we play at League 1 and League 2 level with all the cups, and you probably do need 2 new centre mids. Like Town have had to go out and buy 4 centre backs basically, which we'll come on to. But you do need centre midfield players who go in for tackles and that area of the pitch will pick up injuries and suspensions.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well that we only had 3 central midfielders at the end of last season on the books, which were Richie Smallwood, Brandon Kaler, and Alex Patterson. Now, Brandon Kaler's obviously gone back to Birmingham. He was a loanee. There's all the furore that's happened around Richie Smallwood and him being released, which we'll come on to shortly. And Alex Patterson's the last man standing in there. Now, Graham Alexander was asked about central midfield and said that it is an area we need to look at. We've obviously brought Max Power in, but even when we had 3, like you say, towards the end of last season, we probably looked 1 short. So you're looking at least 1, maybe 2 in there. I'm trying to be conservative because I know that City haven't got a lot of money to throw around. So how many we bring in? It might be that we bring 1 nailed-on central midfielder in, or we bring another midfielder in who can play central midfield. And then the fourth area of the pitch that I'm looking at is attacking midfield, because City play a formation where we play 3 centre halves, 2 wing backs, 2 sitting central midfielders, and then we have 2 advanced central midfielders who play sort of a hybrid between an 8 and a 10. At the moment, we had a lot of them. We had a lot of attacking midfielders last season. At the moment, I know Ian's come in with a comment not to forget George Lapsley. Now, George Lapsley is one of those
hero.
Say again.
The Bradford hero from last season scored the goal.
Yeah, well, he is an attacking midfielder. I don't see him as someone who'll play or compete with Alex Patterson and Max Power to sit in central midfield. I see him as someone who'll compete for one of those 8 or 10 positions, the more attacking players behind the striker. At the moment, we've only got Lapsley, Poynton, Sarcevic and Tommy Lee who can play those positions. And like I said, we had an abundance of players who could play those positions last year. So I would imagine that we're going to look at least bringing an attacking midfielder in to compete with those 4. And then the main area of the pitch, as we all know, centre forward. City are massively short of centre forwards. We've only got 2 on the books. And one of those is Andy Cook, who's obviously out of his long-term cruciate knee ligament injury. Now, only having 2 is not enough. At the best of times, you need at least 3, I'd say. Even if you're only playing 1 up front, you need at least 3 on the books. We are told, or Graham Alexander was asked towards the end of last season. Not towards the end of last season. He was asked last week about Andy Cook and his progress, and we were told that they're not putting a timescale on it, as they've said all along. He won't be ready for the start of the season, but he might not be too far away after that. So you may be looking at, I don't know, that is all that was said. So you're talking September, October. I don't know how they mean by not too far away from the start of the season. But even when he comes back, we've only got Andy Cook and Callum Kavanagh. So we're going to have to bring someone in, at least one player in who can play up front. I think we're going to be looking at players possibly that can play in 2 or 3 positions. Yeah. Possibly someone who could play central midfield and attacking midfield, or someone that can play attacking midfield and centre forward. That would be someone like Marcus Brown, who we mentioned before. He can play attacking midfield or centre forward. Or you bring someone in who can play central midfield or attacking midfield. I think there'll be little bits of wheeling and dealing to go on with that regard. But yeah, left wing back, centre half, central midfield, attacking midfield, striker. At least 5 for me, Downsy. At least 5. But some of those will be loans and probably won't happen until maybe even the season starts.
Yeah, just a quick word on Kieran Kelly and Lewis Richards not getting new contracts, or seemingly no announcement about their futures.
Yeah, they've both been offered deals. They were both on the return list as being offered deals at the end of last season, but no announcement as yet as to whether those deals have been signed. Graham Alexander again was asked about Kieran Kelly and Lewis Richards and basically said that the ball is in their court. They've both had offers from the club and they're waiting to hear back as to whether those offers will be accepted or not. I think in his last interview, he said that Kieran Kelly has had a second offer. So there's obviously been a little bit of negotiation and to-ing and fro-ing there. But still no announcement as to whether either of them will be with us next season. Like I say, if they are, then it might negate the need to sign new players at left wing-back and centre-half. If they're not, we're definitely going to have to look at left wing-back and centre-half signings. You've got... as well, the rumour that Lewis Richards in particular is attracting interest from elsewhere. He, for me, was a really good player for us last season. Surprised a lot of people at left wing back in how good he was. The problem with him is he does pick up injuries, dislocated his shoulder twice, and then did his hamstring that finished his season in February. But if he's being linked with a move, then we need to be prepared that he might not stay on with us and he might move elsewhere, and we need to be looking at left wing backs. Whether we can get Teo Adaramola back is a different story. And obviously Tariq Wright's the only left wing back that we've got at the moment. But yeah, no news. The story is that we are waiting to hear back from them and their agents as to whether they will be signing the deals that have been offered.
Suppose it looks like that they definitely want to keep them, though, if they've been offered deals, or in one of the cases been offered 2 deals, improved offers.
Yeah, they obviously are players that Graham Alexander likes, but again, it comes back to what we were talking about before and the money that we've got to spend, Downsley, because they said it last summer and they've said it again this summer, that we have a limit on where we can go to, and that is totally understandable. We're not, Stefan Rupp's got money, but he's not got Kevin Nagel money. He's not got, Ryan Reynolds money. He's not got Birmingham City ownership money.
He's not got Aki Gaz money.
But yeah, I think we will have a limit, and if they want above that limit, it'll be a no. And the story is that we have had to say no a few times over the last year or so. So there will be no holding back if we have to say no again. But the offers, I believe, are on the table.
Just before we come on to Richie Smallwood, and then a quick thing about Rupp and kind of this Q&A that's happened with City fans. Ian's got a question. He says, when it decides to show.
It's shown up, mate. It's there.
There we go. Do you see Goodman and Ibbotson getting any game time, Gaz?
It's a difficult one, is that? Because personally, I'd like to see him get some game time, maybe in the Virtue Motors Trophy in particular, because how else are they going to prove that they're good enough to make a name for themselves at Bradford City? I'm sure they'll be part of the pre-season training group that's going off to Austria again. But over the last 2 or 3 years, barring Bobby Poynton, City haven't been great at blooding youngsters in the first team and getting players or building a career for the youth prospects at City. George Goodman is very highly rated. I do know that, and I've spoken about him before on the podcast. He's a Northern Ireland under-19 international and did make the bench a couple of times last season. He's a centre-half. At the moment, we do need a centre-half. I would imagine that he might be. It might come down to how well he does in pre-season as to what role he can play in the squad. He's definitely somebody who, if he's as good as the stories are, then definitely want him to see him be given a chance in at least the Virtue Motors Trophy. It will probably depend on how many centre halves we sign between now and the end of the season. I think we've got Curtis Tilt, we've got Joe Wright, we've got Aidan Baldwin. Kieran Kelly's been offered a new contract. So there are gaps there that will need to be filled at centre half, and if he proves himself in pre-season, you'd hope that he'll at least be given a chance. Now, Harry Ibbotson is a different story because Harry Ibbotson scored a lot of goals for the City youth team a couple of years ago. I don't know if he broke records in the youth team, but definitely scored a heck of a lot of goals at that level, under 19 level, his level that City's youth team plays at. But he went out, whereas George Goodman hasn't had a loan in non-league. He stayed at City. He's been in and around the City squad all the time. Harry Ibbotson has had a loan out and spent some time out on loan. I think it was Kidderminster first that he went to, and then he was at Guiseley towards the end of last season. I'm not sure how much of an impact he made in either of those spells. I don't remember him scoring. Someone might correct me on that. He's a centre forward, but and I don't remember hearing that he scored. It'd be good to speak to Lou or Chris about that because they might know a little bit more about how well he did, particularly at Guiseley. But I would imagine he might be somebody again who could be third, fourth choice, perhaps up front, probably fourth choice and below. But I see him possibly having another loan. I would imagine he's more likely to go out on loan. George Goodman might go out on loan again as well. It's probably going to come down to how well they do in pre-season and how many signings we make between now and the end of the window. But I would like personally, from a personal point of view, and I'm sure Ian agrees because Ian is a big fan of promoting youth at City. I'd like to see him given a chance in the Virtue Motors at least. Let's give him a run in that. I mean, why not? Why not let them have a go in the Virtue Motors Trophy and see how they do?
Yeah, I mean, I see that competition as a bit of a pointless trophy. I understand for City why it might be a little bit more enticing because you have got the chance then to go to Wembley and win it. I mean, as Town have, but obviously it's not going to be up on the priority list for Town to do well in. And I, when we were in it last year, we did blood a lot of youngsters through it. I mean, I remember I was going to Doncaster in the first game and virtually playing a mix and match team where half of them were like under 18s, So, it's a good chance to blood youngsters. I also think, you've signed a lot of experienced players. This is just me looking outside in. And I think sometimes you do need that exuberance of youth alongside the experienced heads. And, last season we had at Town Tom Lees, Matty Pearson. It was a very, very dependable back line in some cases, but it was also very slow and ponderous. And I think sometimes, Town we'll come on to speak about Town and the signings that we've made, but, we've made a lot of younger signings now. And I think sometimes the youngsters can be just as good for the older lads as what they are the other way around.
And it's interesting as well, isn't it, Downsy? Because how else do these lads prove themselves if they're not given a chance? I think City have looked at the Virtue Motors Trophy in the opposite way that Town have looked at it over the last couple of years, because obviously City have seen it as a trophy that they want to do well in. We've been 90 minutes from Wembley in the last 2 years. We got beat by Wickham in the semi-final year before last, totally against the run of play. Don't know how we lost that game. Last year we got Birmingham in the semi-final, and we actually put in a really, really good performance. And Birmingham fans spoke really highly about how well they thought City had played, as did and we did. We gave them a right game, and we got beat 2-1. But we did that by playing nearly our first team in it, which a lot of City fans feel was perhaps the wrong move because it cost us in the league towards the end of the season with tired legs. So whether we'll look at it different and we'll look at it how Town have looked at it this year, now we're in League One, I don't know.
I think the priority is staying up, but I just feel from City's point of view, you've got enough to stay in the division to still be competitive in that trophy. Where for Town, it's all out promotion. So Town fans really couldn't give a crap about that cup, I'll be honest. And that is very snobbish of us to say. I totally understand where other EFL fans would see us coming from that. But there has to be one show in Town for Huddersfield Town Football Club this season. For Bradford City, I think because of the standard of the lower part of the division, I just think you'll have enough to stay up and be competitive.
I think ideally you do what you said you do, and you mix and match and you use it for a bit of both. I mean, Bobby Poynton wasn't someone who looked like he were going to be given a chance at one point, and he proved himself in the friendlies. I think it was season before last. He had a decent pre-season, and City fans were saying, "Why ain't he getting a go?" And then eventually he did get a go. And then even when Alexander came in and played him a little bit, he took him out of the team, and he was on the bench. And City fans are saying, "Give him a go, give him a go." And Graham Alexander actually held his hands up when he did give him a go and said, "You were right. I got it wrong. He's proved he can do it." These lads need a chance at the end of the day. And to a certain extent, I agree with you. And you've got to use the Virtue Motors Trophy as a bit of a mix and match, some older heads, and give these younger lads a chance to prove that they can do it.
Yeah, definitely. Quick word on Richie Smallwood. Obviously, there's still a lot of chatter around the city about, the fact that the decision has been made that he's not going to stay. I believe Graham Alexander has had his word to say on it from the manager's point of view.
Yeah, obviously, the news broke. Well, I think Graham Alexander was on holiday when the news broke that Richie Smallwood wasn't being retained. It's all been, a bit of a drama because he was initially, when the retained list was released, Richie Smallwood was listed as someone that City were in contract negotiations with to sign a new deal. And then news broke one morning. It was actually Richie Smallwood on his personal Twitter saying that he'd been told by the club that he was being released. So there was obviously a change of heart there from the club in the way that it's been portrayed. And we had to wait until last week when Graham Alexander did an interview to hear his side of things. There's all sorts of rumours gone round as to why there's been a change of heart. Even though Graham Alexander has explained a little bit of his point of view, he's not really explained why he's had a change of heart, why it's gone from we want to keep him to we don't want to keep him.
What is his point of view for any fans that don't know what he said?
Well, all he said basically is that he sat down with Richie at the end of last season as club captain and player of the year and said that you're somebody that I want with me in League One next season. And then he said, when he's been asked, that it was nagging on his mind after he had that conversation. And he went away and it was just something that was nagging at him and he was conscious about and he was worried about, and he just felt that going forward in League One, it might be something that we need different, or he didn't use the word better. He just said we need something different going forward in League One next season. And it's just something that was nagging on him and playing on his mind after he'd had that initial conversation with Richie. Obviously, Richie felt very blindsided by it, judging by his comments, and you can totally understand that. He said that he had initially wanted a 2-year deal, and after that first conversation, him and his agents had actually contacted David Sharp and said, we'll accept a 1-year deal, we want to stay here. But then Graham Alexander has had this change of heart, and all he said is that it was playing on his mind after his initial conversation with Richie, and he just felt we needed different going forward in League One. Now, why that's happened, why he's realised that later on, I don't know. Like I said, there's all sorts of rumours that have flown around in the City fan base, but at the end of the day, Richie's not going to be with us next year. For me, personally, I am concerned. Not necessarily as in, well, he won Player of the Year, so obviously he had a really good season last year. So you've got that to factor in. But you've also got to factor in the fact that he were club captain and he were a big part of that dressing room. And he was someone that were respected by the fellow players, including the senior players and the younger players. And as you know, and as any football fan knows, promotions are built on unity, togetherness, and taking the captain and the player of the year out of that dressing room, and particularly in the way that it's happened and it's all come about, concerns me a little bit. But the decision's now been made, and whether Max Power is his replacement or someone comes in further down the line to be his replacement, hopefully they can fill that gap and more, because that's obviously what Graham Alexander thinks we need going forward. He feels we need more.
Just quickly moving on to what the owner and chairman, Mr. Rupp, has had to say in the last sort of week or so. There's been some little bits of news with what he's had to say, Gaz.
Yeah, again, nothing earth-shattering, and I know we've been on for 40 minutes about City now, but 2 quick points that he made. He was asked about the ownership of Valley Parade, because it was something that he brought up at last year's fans forum when he spoke to Radio Leeds and the fans forum itself to say that he wanted to buy Valley Parade back, and then everything's gone quiet and nothing's really been said since. He was asked about it again, and basically he said that there's a gap in what he's willing to pay and what Gordon Gibb's family pension fund want for the ground. So at the moment, that's not progressing because there's a gap in valuation. But he also went on to say that he considers perhaps more important than buying Valley Parade back to be setting up our own training ground. At the moment, we train at Woodhouse Grove School, and we are at their mercy, really, as to when we can use the 4G pitches and everything. And obviously, school comes first, and if they want to use them, we can't use them. So he sees it as more important that, at the moment, whether he's just saying that because he can't agree a deal for the ground, but he's saying that he would like us to have our own training ground, which these are the two things that I say will hold City back in League One. He's not owning the ground and not owning the training ground. He said that Ryan Sparks had identified a plot of land where the training ground could be built, but we were kind of at the mercy of Bradford City Council, which, as every Bradford City fan will tell you, is not a good place to be. Bradford City Council have a history of not helping out Bradford City Football Club. They've always been more willing to help out the Bulls down the years, and City have always been felt sort of neglected by the council. So the fact that we're relying on them and the economic situation as it is at the moment, the council have probably openly admit that they've got no money, is not a good place to be. But it's good to know that we're united and we're on the same lines as Mr. Ruppin, that we obviously need to eventually own the ground and the training ground again. And we've identified the fact that we need to do that. Both of them.